Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm Michael, and this is episode number 8. This episode, we talk with Gabriel Saindon of Ivory Holsters. Gabriel and I have never actually met before, but it turns out we have plenty in common, and come from a very similar hunting background. And through the course of this call, we actually may have become best friends. Either way, in today's episode, Gabriel tells us of the time that he killed half an elk, and he even gets me telling my half an elk story. So throughout the entire episode, we have at least one full elk story for you today. Now, I hope you enjoy this podcast as much as I enjoyed recording it with Gabriel. So thanks again for tuning in, and now let's let Gabriel tell you his stories. All right, Gabriel. Cool, man. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the Hunting Stories Podcast. Really excited to hear some of the stories you have for us today.
No worries, man. I'm humbled to be on. I really do appreciate you just reaching out, man. I love, again, like we were talking just before about like sitting around a fire and drinking a glass of whiskey and just talking about elk.
Yeah. You came highly recommended, so I'm excited to hear some of these stories. Why don't we start off real quick with you just telling us about yourself, like, who you are, how long you've been hunting, and whatever information you want to share.
Yeah, I grew up in Colorado. I was not a hunter. Didn't come from a hunting family at all. My father-in-law, when I met my wife, my father-in-law took me for the first time to go pheasant hunting, and I don't even remember. I don't think I had a tag the first time, a small game tag, and I watched him. I think I watched him put a bird down, and it might have been the year after that. I actually put my first bird down, and I was jacked out of my mind. And I'm like 20. I had to be 20, like 21, 22 at the time. And so I killed this bird, and we brought it back to the farmhouse that we were at and breasted it out. And I was just like, no joke, man. I like in my head, I'm thinking to myself, like, holy crap, you can kill stuff and then eat it. I was freaking out, right? So I'm like, now I want to kill big stuff, right? So it kind of, a couple of years go by, and it led me down this path. I was working with a guy, and I was telling him, look, and it wasn't even anything. I wasn't like fishing for an invite to go elk hunting. I just told him, look, I have this bug, and I cannot shake it. I don't know what it is, where it came from, but I'm going hunting this year. And so my plan was to just take a tent and take my rifle and walk out into some woods somewhere and just like go solo. And he's like, you can't do that. You just come with me. So he took me to the spot that we've hunted every year since then. And he no longer hunts there. He moved out of state, but man, it just turned me into an animal. I didn't kill anything the first year. And then I got real lucky and killed like a yearling the second year. Mm-hmm. And, I was done. I was just like, unless like my legs fall off, I'm hunting every year for the rest of my life. That's
awesome.
It's my absolute favorite thing to do. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've fallen in love with it as well. And what's actually funny is my father-in-law got me into hunting as well, but we had a very different experience. I'll just a quick story that I'll tell.
Yeah.
We're in central Washington hunting Roosevelt's muzzleloader. It's my first morning, and we hike out into what they call Bearfield. I don't know why they call it Bearfield, but we get into position. And I didn't see him harvest anything. He wasn't in hunting. He was just coming along with me. But we sit there, and the sun starts to come up, and all of a sudden I hear some rustling. And I look over next to these bushes, and it's actually my father-in-law. He is belly crawling around me in a circle, taking photos, giving me like, look, trying to make me look regal. He's like, look that way. And so I'm like, okay, I guess this is hunting. So I have no idea what I'm doing. But it's the very first hunting memory was my father-in-law doing a photo shoot with me in the middle of this field called Bearfield. And he's just like, oh yeah. And what's funny is I've never actually seen any of those photos, but slightly different experiences, but still getting involved because of your father-in-law. So,
dude, that is awesome. Honestly, when you said that, I had this like vision of, I don't know if you've ever seen Austin Powers, but Austin Powers, he's doing the photo shoot of like the, baby. Yeah. He's like, you're a tiger and you have no sharp teeth for biting. I'm like, that is hilarious.
That's exactly it. He's a Canadian guy, so he's just crawling around on his belly taking photos, and I'm like, I just feel like we're not gonna, kill anything.
Right.
But all right, whatever.
So did you end up seeing anything like that?
No. We went several years there, we didn't see a thing. I was actually concerned at the time that I wouldn't know the difference between a deer and an elk if one walked out, and I was like, well, how do I know which one to shoot? And
right.
Turns out as soon as I saw an elk, I was like, okay,
I know what
the
that
difference.
is.
But it's pretty obvious the difference. So,
That's
but I interrupted
awesome.
you there, Gabriel. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
You're good. That's it. So yeah, just grew up. Wasn't a hunting family at all. Got kind of the bug, and I think honestly it was probably from God. Like I didn't have any experiences. We camped a little bit when I was a kid, but it wasn't any. It was like tent camping and a lot of
Hmm.
parents drinking and stuff like that. And so it was super fun. I just have always loved being in the outdoors, and now I have 4 little boys of my own.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah, and so
How old?
so 10, 10, 9, 5, and 1. Um,
Oof.
yeah, so I'm trying to get them into it and teach them as much as I can. And I'm not a great hunter by any means. I've had some really good luck, um, and have learned a whole lot. Mainly because I do a lot of like studying. When I say studying, it's a lot of listening to podcasts and reading books and
Yeah.
specifically like Paul Medell. I every time I can tout that guy. Paul Medell is an absolute monster, and I figure like if I wanted to be great at anything in my entire life, I'm gonna find the dude who's like really really good at it or the best at it, and I'm gonna do what he does, right? And so I just heard about the success that Paul Medell has with his son, and it's legitimately been like 35 years. The two of those guys, I think, last year was the first year in 30 some odd years that they didn't kill one, and it was only because they I don't know if they passed on one and didn't get an opportunity because something boogered one up that they were going to shoot. Something happened. It's not that they couldn't have got it, but man, when you
Yeah.
kill an elk 35 years in a row, I got to start listening and figure out what you're doing. And so yeah, his whole I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, the elk nut.
Absolutely. Yeah. His app is awesome too.
He's incredible, man, and like
He's great.
I soak up everything he has said and have had a lot more encounters because of the things that he's said to do, which I never would have done on my own. Um, but I think right now the thing I need to practice most on is just the setup. I've had some really really good luck calling elk in for buddies. And even for myself, but just one little thing here or there kind of tends to booger it up. So I'm
It
still
happens.
still honing that in. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it kind of so I had one. I'm up there solo. We hunt just south of Steamboat, and so I'm up there solo, and I've got the elk nut playbook, and so it's nighttime. I'm laying on the ground in this shelter, and I start reading because I know where there's a wallow. So I'm like, all right, I don't want to hunt a wallow. So I just flipped to the chapter on wallows, and he's like, so if you're going to hunt a wallow, you want to get there at 5:30 ish, depending on when the sun's going down. I'm like, oh, the sun is going down right at that same time. So I'm like, all right, I'll get there. I'll get there at 5:30, a little earlier. And he goes, get get your position set up, make sure you can get downwind, and then start off with some soft cow calling, and then rake a tree and splash in the water a bunch, and do this like calling sequence that will last like up to 5 or even 10 minutes. It was nuts, which I never would have called had I
Hmm.
not listened to him. I never would have called for 10 minutes straight, right?
Yeah. Never.
So I'm up there splashing in the water and uh, doing some soft cow calls and nothing super aggressive. And I get done with this sequence and I literally walk back to the bush I was hiding behind just down the hill slightly. And I turn around to squat down and get in position. And there's 2 spikes standing in the wallow where I just was. I was baffled. I'm like, couldn't.
They walked in 10 seconds behind you.
They did. It was unbelievable. Like they were sitting in the dark timber, right where I mean, they must have been watching me, but it was obviously. I say obviously, maybe it's not obvious. In our unit, you can't kill spikes. But I was just baffled, man. It was like honestly,
Hmm.
if that guy told me to like bark like a dog and bounce up and down on one leg and it would kill elk, I would do it because everything he's told me to do seems to work. It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
been pretty awesome. Are you a caller? You like calling? Are you more spot and stock? What do you like to do?
I've only done archery hunting for 3 years at this point, and I bring my bugle tube with me, and I feel like I'm a pretty decent caller.
Nice.
But I've only had to hunt the beginning of September just due to miscellaneous things. I had a daughter last year, 1st of October, so that was
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. Yeah, my wife was a saint and let me actually hunt the first week of September. So I'm usually out there early. I've tried and just haven't had any luck. I haven't gotten any of those bugle fests so far, but I'm prepared. I'm ready for it.
I'm telling you. So I've tried to do, like, there are guys that have said that third week of September is the best, and you get the peak of the rut that third week. And I've tried that, and I have just not, for whatever reason, had the best of luck in it. And so where I've honestly had the best of luck was that first week, first whatever 10 days where the elk have not seen a human in the last 11 months.
Yeah.
And they don't seem, skittish or boogered up. The key to it, in my opinion, and I think Paul Medell I've kind of taken a couple of pages out of his book, but I think the key that has really helped me is when I first started, I would sit like on the edge of a meadow and look out into the meadow and maybe even do a couple of, calls or a bugle or whatever. And I would expect that the elk was going to walk out into the meadow and like, let me shoot it. And I did that for years. Right. And so when Paul Medell is like, no, you get into the thickest, nastiest stuff you can find and set up in a place where they can't get behind you, to where you have, where they're going to, they're going to come from basically. And if you're first part of the season, do your calling sequence and then sit down and shut up for like 30, 45 minutes and just be patient. And I'm telling you, man, if you have the patience to do that and you can sit there for 30, 45 minutes in the cold, shivering your fanny off, so many times they've come in either silent or just given like a tiny little grunt or a tiny little chuckle, and you don't know that they're there until they're already on you. But it wouldn't have happened if you didn't have, the patience to sit there for 30 minutes. And it's one of those things where I'm like, God, I must have walked away from more elk than I've ever shot, because I bugle, I didn't get a response, and so I walk. It's just not the way it works, especially in early season.
Yeah, no, it's funny is here I am telling all the stories, but I think this was 2 seasons ago. We're doing our calling. Nothing's really happening. We sit there for 10, 15 minutes and we just walk down the path. And then we walk about maybe 100 yards and we said, okay, you know what? Maybe we don't want to go this way. We're kind of getting cliffed out. Let's turn around. We turned back around and there was a bedded elk right where we walked by, and we just spooked him. If we had just stayed put, he probably would have come right to us. You just got to be patient.
And it's those little things, like if you don't put that into your memory bank and not do it again, right? You could be walking past them. It's pretty incredible how easily you can screw it up. But then it's also like, man, if I could just either write it down or remember what I did last time, those little experiences will end up yielding elk in the future for sure. Right.
For sure. The best lessons are the ones that are self-taught, though. So you've got to make the mistakes in order to get better.
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh. So you reminded me of one. I had a buddy of mine. We always hunt the same area, which is not a good thing. We've got some pretty good elk knowledge in our unit. And we have a pretty good honey hole where we're always seeing them. I think within this like little 500-yard area, we've killed, it's got to be 10, 12 elk within this like 500-yard circle. And that's because we hunt archery and rifle season. So it's not all bow. But he was up solo one year, and he's walking up the hill. We call it Edgar's Meadow. So he's walking up to Edgar's Meadow, and he's got his bow in his hand, and he sees a bull paralleling him on the opposite side of this like opening. Mm-hmm. And the bull's like nice and slow and just moving. And so he's moving next to it, and he finally gets slightly above it and posts up and stops. And he's waiting for the bull to come up this trail. And as it comes up the trail, he lifts his bow, and as he comes to full draw, the woods erupt. And he said there's like 30 elk that were bedded that he never saw, and they were right in front of him. So they saw him draw, busted, start barking, and just tear ass out of there. And so now he's like, he had his bow pointed at the bull, but now he's like, cow, elk. And so he's moving his bow around, like, which one do I shoot? Doesn't know what to do. Anyway, it turns out, I think he flung an arrow at the bull, missed, and never got an elk that year. And so anyway, I get this, he tells me this story, and I didn't do it justice, honestly, but the next year I went up by myself. And so I'm up, and I walk into Edgar's Meadow, and sure enough, as I walk in, there's a bull facing like 180 degrees. All I can see is ass and antlers, right? So he's just 100, no shot, no nothing. I mean, unless you wanted to run one up the bunger, which I'm not going to do with
Yeah.
a bow.
What do they call that? The Texas heart shot.
Yeah, yeah. So I see this thing and he's totally calm. It's like 7:15, maybe a little later, but the wind is still good, blowing downhill, and I can see him just kind of grazing. And so I have Luke's story in my head, and I'm thinking to myself, dude, if you pull out your rangefinder and you make any kind of movement, if there's anything else in this field, they're gonna bust and you're gonna lose them. So don't range him. So just, and I'm like gillied out, right? I got my leafy suit on and my leafy hat and face paint, and it was so awesome, man. And this bull I judged to be at, I'm talking to myself in my head. I'm like, okay, don't second guess it. That bull is at 40 yards. When he turns just slightly sideways, slip one behind that last rib, put the 40 pin on him and let it go. And so I did. So I draw back and I'm shaking like I'm trying to crap out a peach seed. And I put the 40 pin on him and I send it. And the arrow, I can hear the arrow hit something super hard, like a log. And it went way low, super low. And so this bull, he's had his head down. He picks his head up, and he's got a reed in his mouth, going like across, like the baseball cap that has like the arrow through it, where it's like the fletching on one side and then the arrow on the other side. It looked like that, but through his mouth. And I was like, oh my gosh, I shot him in the face. And I was like freaking out, right? And it was just a piece of food that he had in his mouth, but my arrow went way low. So now I'm super pissed because he picked his head up and he kind of looked around, and I think truly the leafy suit kind of saved me. He looked right, into my soul, and then he kind of went back to grazing. And so I'm so pissed at myself for botching that. And so I reach into the pocket, grab the rangefinder, click it. He's 60 yards away. I shot for 40, which I was super hacked, but I was really glad that he didn't walk away.
Yeah.
So now he's just slightly boogered. Like he's still eating, but he knows he needs to probably clear out of the field. And so he turns and he starts to go downhill slightly. And I know that if he gets to a certain point, he's going to catch my wind. And so I there's like this, it's not a scrub oak. It's like some super tall, like dead bush. It's got to be like, whatever, 15, 20 feet tall. And there's one opening where I can see a little window where I'm telling myself, okay, he's at 60. When he gets there, he'll be right around 50. So you put your 50 pin on him, and when he steps into the window, let it go. And so sure enough, he's slowly moseying, and I came to full draw. And instead of like following him with my pin through the bush and then letting it go when he stepped into the window, I put my pin on the window and waited till he stepped into the window, and then I sent it. Well, he must have taken like a half a step more than I thought he was going to take, because when I sent it, it hit him way far back, but it was high enough to where it clipped his spine and it dropped his back legs. Now this is the not so pretty part of hunting, right?
Yeah.
So it dropped his back legs and he goes down. And now I just know I don't want it to suffer. I just need to get another piece of metal in him, right? So I knock another arrow, and he gets up and falls back down, and gets up and falls back down. And so he gets up, and I just come to full draw and put, I don't even know if I knew what pin it was, but I put a pin on him and I sent it and hit him again. And that was, dude, it was bad. I hit him in the hams. Like I pulled the arrow when I finally got him all cut up. I pulled the arrow out, and the arrow went through his back ham and then into the other ham, and it was stuck inside, obviously. And then when he took a step, he had snapped the arrow to the, like basically with his hips. It was pretty freaking amazing, actually. And so he boogers down the hill a little ways and ends up getting into some dark timber and busts a couple of other elk out, and they tear ass down the hill. And he's basically he's hurt to the point where he's like, he just needed to rest. So he laid down next to a tree, and he let me run up to him at 20 yards and send one right through the double lunged him and complete pass through, and got to, watch him expire fairly quickly. And
that's good.
It was good. I mean, it's not the way I would have wanted it to go, right? But I got a buddy
Yeah,
that's like, dude, and I don't want to use this as an excuse, but he says if you hunt long enough, you're gonna screw one up, right? Um, and I think he's right. It's the way it
absolutely.
is. You're gonna screw some stuff up. So I'm just really glad that I ended up being able to put this one down. I say I was solo. Now that I think about it, I was hunting by myself at the time, but my wife's uncle was with me, and he had gone, a couple of ridges over and was hunting by himself in another
Hmm.
area. So I did have some help getting this guy out.
That's good.
But
I was gonna
but
say, as a newer hunter, I have two things that I regularly like have nightmares about, and number one is injuring an animal and not putting it down or not being able to find it, and then the other one's packing things out. So I'm glad that you did put the animal down, and I'm glad you had a buddy to help you pack out.
yeah, and I still, so I'm 41 years old, and I have this uh, almost boyish like challenge in my brain where I'm like, one day I'm gonna pack one out all by myself. I'm gonna put one down. I'm not even gonna tell anybody I put it down. I'm just gonna pack it out just to say that I packed the whole thing out myself. Honestly,
That'll be the one that you kill right next to the truck, right?
I hope so. Yeah, and hopefully it's like a 200-pound yearling. It would be
Yeah.
great. But it was super fun, and I'm really really excitable, and so I got like jacked. And Melissa's uncle is not like that, and so I went up to the spot where we were supposed to meet, and I left him a note, and on the log, and I said, I'm down at the bottom of Edgar's, come back down. I killed a bull. And so as I'm quartering, um, I hear him walk up behind me, and I turn around, and he's staring at me with this bull, and he literally just kind of looked at me, and he goes, "Cool." I was like, "What the hell? Like, what do you mean cool? Like, this is the coolest thing in my entire life. How do you say?
Yeah.
How is it just cool? Like, you should
I
be
need you
jumping
to get
up
on
and
my
down."
level real quick.
Yes, a little bit. Like, I need to check your pulse, because the first time we killed a bull with our rifles, and that was the half I was telling you about. My buddy Luke and I killed a bull with a rifle. We freaked the hell out, like we like a couple of schoolgirls hugging each other and jumping up and down in the woods. It was like you were trying to get to prom with the
Oh
prom
yeah,
king. It was horrible. I mean, horrible, but I would do it again. It's that incredible, overwhelming feeling of just like joy and thankfulness, and I mean, knowing after years of hunting that the success rate is 10%. It's just, even that adds to the that feeling, right? That you don't. It's not something that happens every year.
absolutely. Yeah, and then yeah, I had a similar situation where I was actually a Texas whitetail, but public land, which is not all that common in Texas,
No, it's not.
with
That's
a
awesome.
shotgun with double aught buckshot. And when I put that thing down, I'm hugging my buddy, and he's like, "Yeah, buddy, okay, we've never hugged before." And I'm like, "Well, we're hugging from now on, man," because we just had a moment. At least I think we did.
I do. I'm telling you, man. The part of the reason I think people, especially me, love the guys from Born and Raised Outdoors is because you can see that, like, genuine, like, loving excitement. That's like, still, it's this, like, it's a masculine love for what they're doing and love for each other as well, because they're the kind of dudes that you can see from the way they hunt that they are willing to fight and die for each other. Like,
Yeah,
literally, they would die for each other on the hill. And so it's a pretty unique thing, because I don't think a lot of people, specifically not a lot of men, have that, right? Where you've got that dude that you are. I mean, unless you've been military, and I've not, but
yeah,
you don't really find that type of like friendship where we're not coming off the mountain. Like, we're going to do this together. It will happen, and we'll go through whatever the hell we have to go through to get it done. It's just so cool. That's why I love Born and Raised so much. They're probably my favorite to watch on YouTube.
yeah. You're 100% right. The neat thing about this pastime that we have, this hobby, whatever you want to call it, um, it creates relationships that are deeper than any relationships you'll make in other places. I'm better friends with my hunting buddies, who I only have known for a few years, than all of my college buddies, high school buddies, whatever it is. I feel closer to them because of what we've shared.
Yeah,
Putting
no, I'm
down
with you.
a 200, 700, whatever pound animal, it's a big deal. It's heavy on the heart. And so sharing that with someone and going through those struggles, like you said, packing out or just being on the mountain on those freezing mornings, whatever it is, it bonds you with those folks.
I agree. I think you, in my experience, you can learn more about a dude in like one night, like around a campfire, having a glass of whiskey or beer or whatever, then you could learn in legitimately years working side by side at the job with a guy like that. You just, it's a different type of, I don't even know how to explain it, but you get it. You get it. I don't have to
Yeah.
explain it to you. You understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. And whether it's the campfire or a 3:30 in the morning hike, you learn a lot about that individual.
You do. And you can learn real quick because if they're the kind of person you want around or not, because you're going to find out, right? You put a little struggle on it and you start to figure out what people are made of and if those are your kind of people or not.
For sure. For sure. You're 100% right, Gabriel. Well, what other stories you got, man? That was I enjoyed that one. I, I'm glad you put the animal down. I've had a few people on here that they told a bunch of stories and they actually didn't put any animals down. But that's just, like you said, nature of the game. What else you got for us?
We had the first the Edgar is the bull that we did. It was a rifle hunt. We were up.
I was going to ask if Edgar was a hunting buddy or
no,
something else.
Luke's the hunting buddy, but Edgar is what we named the bull after we killed him. And it was I think it was the first year Luke and I hunted together, and it was before I got into archery. But we didn't know what the hell we were doing, right? So we're walking around the woods, and I mean there was sign everywhere. Like we can see that it's fresh green scat, fresh track. I mean it was like we were tripping over elk sign. But it's halfway through the day, and we're just pissed because we're not seeing anything, we're not hearing anything. And so at one point, we're literally like in the woods swearing at each other because he wants to do one thing, I want to do another thing, and neither of us know what the hell to do, right? So it's just we were super frustrated. And so we get to this meadow, which again is now what we call Edgar's Meadow, and I said, look, let's just sit. All we're doing is stinking the place up. We're laying our scent everywhere. There's sign all over the place. Let's just sit and take a break for a little while. You sit on the you sit on the sunny side of this little pine thicket. I'll sit on the shady side, and it was pretty chilly. And so I went to my side, and on my side there's aspens, like it's like this downward draw that's kind of I say draw, it's more of a flat, but it's sloping downhill slightly, and you've got pines on one side, aspens on the other. So I sat on the aspen side, he sat on the pine side, and I fell asleep. And I don't know how long I was out, but I know that I woke up to his 300 Win Mag barking, and I jump up and I heard it. So the first shot went off, I heard it. I get my rifle and I hop up. Second shot goes off, and I come around to where I can see Luke now, and he's got his rifle pointing downhill, and he's legitimately shaking uncontrollably. Like he still has his rifle up, but he can't stop shaking. And I look at him and I look down the hill, and there is this beautiful, I say giant, to me it's giant, 6x6, standing at the bottom of this little park, and he's got another round racked, and safety is off, but he's got trees in his way. And so I look at him and I look at this bull, and I draw up, and so I have my crosshairs on him, and I go, Luke, I can take him, and he doesn't say anything. And this bull is like standing there, kind of looking around, like confused, but didn't have like drunk legs or there was no sign. There's no blood coming out of him, no sign of him being hit, aside from maybe the fact that he didn't know where the hell he wanted to go. So he's like looking around. And so the second time I go, Luke, I can take him. I got a shot. And he goes, take him. And so I had crosshairs already on him, and I sent it, and he dropped like a bag of hammers. It was amazing. And this thing went down. And that was that like high school girl moment. I'm not kidding. Like, I don't even know if I'm pretty sure I had enough wherewithal to lightly set my rifle down, but I got rid of the rifle, and I'm jumping up and down, and we're hollering and squeezing it. And you can like see, I ranged it after this bull was only 126 yards from where we were, but we're brand new to it. And so we're like, okay, we need to sit down, and you can see the bull down the hill. You're like, we got to sit down and wait for him to expire. And you want to eat a sandwich, and we got to wait a half an hour, and blah, blah, blah. Like all the safety crap that they say on all the shows. And it was like, I wolfed this peanut butter sandwich down, and it was like 4 minutes. And I was like, all right, we got to go. So we go tearing ass down the hill. And sure enough, this is just incredible. I'll send you some pictures if I.
That's awesome.
But this thing was
I'd love to meet Edgar.
beautiful. Yeah, Edgar, he's awesome. Wow, honestly, we'll have to have you over for supper sometime. He's in the hall here.
So you know what? That was actually going to be my next question. So we were talking beforehand. I've killed half a bull as well. Who kept the antlers? Obviously you.
Yeah,
And
I did.
And what was the logic or argument behind that?
So we had a preset rule: kill shot takes the antlers, and we split the meat. And that's pretty much like anything we're hunting. That's just so there's no argument over it. There's no, fussing and moaning over it. Whoever puts the quote kill shot or last shot on it is the one who takes it.
Gotcha.
This year, actually, that year it kind of made it easier. So sure enough, we found that afterward, Luke he's sitting on his side of the pines. Edgar comes out at 44 yards, and he had sighted in his rifle and hadn't turned it back down to 4 power or 3 power. Is it 3 to 9? Yeah, 3 to 9. So he's still got it on 9 at 44 yards away. And so when he draws up, all he sees is this tuft of brown fur. Can't see anything. And Edgar's staring at him in the face. And so he's got to get around this one little aspen. So he just barely leans to the left side. And as he leaned, Edgar saw him move and was like, boom, I'm gone. And so he's taken off down the hill. So Luke takes a running shot. Sure enough, he had both of Luke's 300 Win Mag bullets in him, and then my .06 bullet in him. And so the plan is to we always split the meat with whoever's helping to pack out. I say split it. It varies how we split it, but anyway. So because I got the kill shot, I kept the rack, he kept the cape, and then we had gone back down the hill to pick up a couple of buddies to come help us and pack it out and grab a couple more pack frames. So we just had our day packs on at the time. This was before I started running I'm a huge fan of EXO. I actually work with EXO in the business. You know what I'm talking about? EXO Mountain Gear. They make
those. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if
I've never tried one of their packs, but I hear good things.
The thing's amazing, man. Unbelievable. And so I make holsters for backcountry hunters. I don't know if I told you that. I'm pretty sure I didn't tell you that actually. But they mount to the hip belt of your hunting pack for basically so you're in backcountry hunters. So it was before I had worked with those guys and made these holsters for backcountry hunters. So we were only carrying a day pack instead of like a load bearing rig like the EXO. And so I'd go back down, drop off the first load of meat, which was like back straps and tenderloins, and then picked up some pack frames. So we get down and we pick up 2 more buddies, and they had just shot a bull as well, and they had just finished pulling a bull off the mountain. And so we grabbed them, pack frames, we walked back up the hill, and as we crest the hill to get into the same meadow, Luke was the one that was first in line, then it was me, then Kenny and Jason. And so Luke comes in and he stops in this clearing, and we're all behind him, so we can't see what he's seeing. And he picks his rifle up, and I'm thinking to myself, like,
oh my goodness,
there's got to be a coyote like eating the meat that we had hung, or we left it on the ground under a tree, but we had like taken our shirt off, a sweaty shirt, and laid it in the field, and then peed all around it. And so anyway, he raises up his rifle, and I think he's going to shoot a cow or a coyote, and he turns around and looks at me, and then turns back his head forward and shrugs his shoulders like, well, I guess it's going to go down. And he pops another one off, and sure enough, Edgar's cow was standing in the field, and so he shot the cow too. And so now we have 2 elk down. It's like probably 4 o'clock in the evening, and so it's like go time. We got to get it, and it's October, so it's getting dark, a lot quicker than beginning of September. So, and it was, the funny thing is we didn't really bring anything. We brought pack frames, and that was it. So we quartered this cow with like tiny like Cabela's Leatherman. It's just a stupid hack job. We hung it up with some nylon rope that somebody had like accidentally left in the bottom of their pack. It was super janky, but that's what made it so much easier for me to, it made it more palatable for me to take the antlers, because he ended up with a full freezer because he took the cow, I took the bull, right? And so It was the best year of hunting, and it's funny because we were we were staying at a 5-star condo in Steamboat that year. We weren't even camping, and because a different buddy had a timeshare, so we get back to this condo and we got 2 bulls and a cow, and I remember taking Edgar's head in, and it's a 6x6, and the skin was still on the head. And I walk it into this condo, and there's this woman, a man, and a kid getting off the elevator. And they see, like I don't want to say that I'm covered in blood, but it's a messy job,
Yeah.
right? And so I've got blood on my hands, and I'm bringing this elk rack in, and it's like I got to turn it sideways and dip down to get in the door. And this kid looks up at me like complete bewilderment, and he literally looks me in the eye. He goes, "Did you kill that?" And I was like, "Yes, I did." And the kid was like, he's like, "That's so awesome." And his parents, as we walk past, his parents go, "I can't believe they're bringing that thing in here." So we took it up to like the 4th floor, put it on the balcony. It stayed cool. It was awesome, man.
That's amazing. For some reason, I had the visual of you like sitting at the condo hot tub in Steamboat with the bull in the tub with you, just living the dream.
It wasn't far off. That was the year I jumped into the hot tub with my cell phone in my pocket. So yeah, it was not far off.
That's funny, man. That's so funny. Well, you know what? I'll reciprocate with a half an elk, even though yours ended up being you rounded up. I think I rounded down for my half elk.
No, I want to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hunting Central Washington with my my brother-in-law. Father-in-law's there, but he's not hunting again. And
this was muzzleloader?
Muzzleloader, yep. This is muzzleloader.
Okay.
So it's early October. And I didn't have time to scout, didn't have anything. Also didn't really care too much for hunting at the time. This is actually the story that I fell in love with hunting on.
Awesome,
it was the
man.
only bugle fight or bugle fest that we've ever really been a part of. So
yeah,
the first morning, I don't know anything other than what the maps look like when I was looking at them a week or two in advance. So I get up, get ready, and just sort of like, okay, there's a draw over here. I'll hike over here, see what happens. My buddy's in the same boat, so he likes a slightly different draw. We say, okay, we'll come back to camp around 9 o'clock. We'll reconvene and figure out a plan from there. So we hike around in the morning. Nothing happens. We come back to camp. I come back. He's making pancakes or something. I don't know. But we're going to go check one of our other cameras. And it's about a mile down the road, not too far. So we jump in his truck and we start driving. And we get down there. We're checking cameras. And we start to hear some bugles. And it's at this point like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And we're like, oh, some stupid hunter. Like, it's October. They don't bugle now because we don't know any better.
Right.
As it turns out, the bugles start to just become more consistent, quicker, and we're like, okay, either that's a hunter and an elk, or just a couple of like that's not hunters. That there's at least one elk involved. So we at this point just book it down back into this valley that we could see the other hillside because we could hear that it's coming from basically the other ridgeline. And we get down there. And
are you guys paying attention to wind at all? Or are you just like, let's get there now?
No, we had no idea. We
awesome.
Literally, not one of us had a wind checker on us. Like that's where we were at this point in my hunting career.
Awesome.
Either way, we get down off of our hillside. We're in this valley. We look across, and there's an opening on the hillside. A bull, just a monster, 6x7, walks in, bugles his little brain out.
Awesome.
And then walks into the trees, and we're like, "Let's go!" But unfortunately, there's a river. We got to run 108, or actually 90 degrees, east. Just basically the wrong direction. He's heading west. We're running east to get around the river, to jump over, to get up. And my buddy is a mountain goat. He can just go and go and go. And I'm about 10 months out from having, what is it called? I'm drawing a blank on the surgery. I'm about 10 months out from having my Achilles repaired.
Oh.
I had a complete tear. So he starts running up this mountain like we're going to chase this elk down. And I get up about 100 yards up this hillside, and I'm like, nope, good luck. I can't do this with you. But I know that the road that we were on goes all the way around this ridge line. So if I just stay on the road, I could run flat for days.
Sure.
So I jump down, and I'm running around. I run by a car. Car is just like, what's this idiot doing? And I'm just like jogging with all my hunting gear.
Like a muzzleloader in your hand.
Muzzleloader. And they're like, what is this idiot doing? So I get over there, and all of a sudden I hear just muzzleloader goes off. I'm like, oh, man, my buddy must have got one. As it turns out, my father-in-law and brother-in-law, who are about a mile north of this dry wallow, heard the bugling and came down as well. So what happened was he got in there right in the center of it, and then realized there's about 40 cows around and it's a couple bulls. So he just dropped down and waited until he got a shot. He took a shot at this bull, I want to say 10 yards broadside, 50 caliber muzzle
Holy
loader, just
crow.
boom.
Yeah.
So when that happened, a bull charged down this hillside and stopped right on the road, right in front of me. I didn't have a chance to range it, but I pulled my rifle up, or excuse me, my muzzle loader, and I see this bull, and literally on all sides around it, I see a canvas wall tent behind it.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, beautiful bull. And it's that 6x7 that we had seen earlier, just monster. And it sees me. I have plenty of time to shoot, but I'm like, I just can't take that shot. I don't know if someone's sitting in that camp. I don't know what's going on. I got to let it go. So it runs off into the woods across the road. I run down, I'm guessing 60 to 70 yards, and look into the woods that it ran into, being like, okay, I don't know any better. I'm just going to chase this thing down. I'm feeling good. Let's go. The adrenaline hits you. When I'm thinking that, I hear something behind me. I turn around, looked up the hill. About 65 yards uphill is another bull. And I'm like, that's a big bull too. I'll just go ahead and shoot that one. No reason to chase after this one.
Right. Okay.
Right. So I pull my muzzleloader up and boom, it goes off. Smoke everywhere. And I'm just like waving my hands, trying to get the smoke gone. And then I'm like, oh yeah, the only thing they told me, literally the only advice they gave me about hunting is if you shoot something, reload your muzzleloader and get ready to shoot again. So I'm
awesome.
Spending my next 15 minutes reloading my muzzleloader.
Yeah, that's pretty sound advice.
Dropping my sabots on the ground, dropping my powder on the ground, just trying to reload. And as I'm doing this, I'm panicking, and that truck drives right back by. And I'm like, I don't know if those guys realize what's going on here, but I'm having like a heart attack because I think I just shot an elk. But they just drive by. They don't say a word to me. They just drive by as I'm like dropping everything I own in this little ditch right next to the road. Either way, I hear someone yell, "Hey, who's shooting?" And it's my brother-in-law. I don't recognize his voice. And I'm like, Dylan, I just shot an elk. He's like, I shot one too. And he's like, I have no idea where mine is. And we don't see each other. We're just screaming at each other through the woods because that's what logical hunters would do.
Right. No, I'm in. I'm not above that. I might have done that in the past.
Yeah. So he's like, I have no idea where mine went. And I'm like, well, at this point, I'd climbed up the hill and I'm standing on this game trail. I'm like, I'm standing where I shot mine. So come to me, which also makes no sense. He should have been looking for his blood trail. I should have been looking for mine. Either way, he comes to me. And we're sitting there, and he's like, "You shot one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I shot one." And this is amazing. It was the coolest experience I've ever had in my life.
Yep.
And then we look down the game trail about 80 yards, and there's a bull standing right there. And that
standing still?
Standing. It's got 2 holes in it.
Holy cow!
2 holes. So when I shot, it wasn't bleeding. Nothing. The bullets went on the same side. Apparently, just didn't leave much of a wound to bleed. I don't know why, but at this point, there was bubbly blood coming out of both of those.
Were the shots pretty close together? Were the impact holes pretty close?
No, I would say they were about 12 inches apart. His was low, like a perfect heart shot. He says he liquefied the heart, and when we took that thing out, you couldn't find the heart.
Wow.
Which is crazy because I shot it probably about 30 seconds after, and it was on its feet for at least another 15 to 30 minutes.
Holy cow. So did you end up shooting a third time? Because you'd reloaded, right?
No, I had reloaded, but like at this point, so to go back to my brother-in-law, so he was hunting with his father.
Mm-hmm.
And when they heard the bugling, his father's at this point, maybe 68, 69. He looks at his dad and goes, "Sit down. I'm going to drop a pin. I'll be back for you." And so he left his dad. So he went and we go, okay, well, you sit here and watch that thing die. Because again, I didn't know any better. I didn't know what I was doing. I was there for the camaraderie, not for the hunting.
Sure.
So he leaves me there to watch this elk, and then he runs back into the woods to go catch his dad, which is funny because his dad didn't have a muzzleloader on him. But while sitting there, recorded multiple videos of herds of elk walking by him. He probably watched 60 elk walk by while he was waiting for us as we put the elk down. Either way, didn't do anything else. Just sat there and watched. It was actually really difficult. I'm not gonna lie, I teared up. I was crying. I was like, "This is hard. Like, what do I do?" I was like, "Should I shoot it again?" I don't know.
Awesome, man.
I didn't know what to do.
That's
it was
awesome,
my first experience ever putting down an animal. Oh, it's
awesome. It means that you have the correct level of give a shit is what it means, right? That you care that much, or you're like, I want to make sure that I'm doing whatever the right thing is, right? If that means not
Yep.
shooting it, I don't want to do it. But if it is to shoot it, then I want to, right? So it's awesome that you felt that way. That's what a
Yeah.
great feeling. I mean,
And this
it's a
whole
crappy
experience,
feeling, but
yeah, no, it was terrible. But this whole experience is what got me like, I need to learn. I need to learn a lot more than what I know. Either
hmm
way, so then the buddy that I was originally with, he comes stomping up while my brother-in-law's, for lack of a better term, fetching his father.
hmm
And he's like, "What happened?" And I try and explain it all. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I shot the same elk." And so him and I just start to dress the animal while we're still waiting for the other folks to come back. So we're up there on the hillside. And again, remember, I shot this right above someone's camp. They come home midday and they're like, "What are you boys doing up there?" And we're like, "Well,
oh yeah,
we're dressing an elk." They're like, "You mean you killed an elk in our camp?" And I'm like, "No, that elk we let walk away. This is one just up the hill from your camp." And they're like, "What?" So these four guys come up and they're like, "Oh man, this is a monster." Which again was actually the smaller of the two bulls we saw. But the crazy thing about it is we then went and got our truck, pulled the truck over, and the slope was steep enough that the six of us were able to just slide it down the hillside right into the truck bed, and we took it
awesome.
out whole.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is a great story, man.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and then we spent the next day drinking beers and skinning it, and just being the coolest people in camp because every person that drove by pulled over to hear the story. So it
Oh,
was a lot of
that's so
fun.
awesome.
I got some videos and pictures, and I'll make sure to share them at some point. But
For sure, I want to
um,
see him.
but yeah, that experience is what made me a hunter. Before I was just a guy hiking around with a gun,
Yep.
just to meet my soon to be in laws.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, okay, this this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I want to devote a lot of time to, and this is what I want to learn how to be good at. I didn't even have kids at the time, but at that time I was like, I know I suck at this. I want to be good enough at this so that my children are good at this because
Yep.
this is amazing. I
That,
immediately I was thinking just generations down the line, I want to that this is what I want my family to do.
yeah. No, I feel the same way. I think to myself, like I hear about all these guys that have the stories where I started, hunting at 9 years old with my granddad or with my dad or my uncle, and I don't have that, and I'm not like griping at all. It just it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not a big. I'm not like sad about it, but man, I have four boys, and God has completely blessed me, and so there's this like amazingly, I don't know what you want to call it, primal or masculine draw to want to pass that down an excitement standpoint, but from like a self-subsistence standpoint too, right? I want them to
Yeah.
have that the ability, should you get into a situation where you have to go and kill your own food, that you can, right? And so that's awesome, man. That before we even had kids, because I felt the same way. Before we even had kids, we wanted to pass this down to them. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty special. Now I have a 3-year-old boy, and he is team dad hunting like you wouldn't believe. We go to 3D courses, and he's in my backpack, and I'm shooting my bow, and he's like, "Yeah, Dad, get the elk. We're going to eat it." And I'm like, "Yeah, man!" Like it's a ton of fun, man. It's a great experience to share with him. You got any other good stories? I know I just stole the mic for a minute to tell you
No,
about
no,
my
no.
hack.
You're good, man. You're good. I'm all set, brother. I'm just like super humbled to be able to sit here and talk elk with you and kind of get. It's funny how similar our experiences have been, right?
Yeah,
With
right.
just massive screw ups in the beginning and then getting better and better every year. Um, it's pretty cool, man. I'm just stoked to be talking elk with a fellow elk hunter. Super
Yeah,
cool.
it's been a lot of fun, man. Why don't you, real quick, since we got you before you bail, let's tell people where they can find you. Instagram. I know you are part of a Ivory Holsters, so why don't you fill people in on what they can or how they can find you?
Yeah, so I own a company called Ivory Holsters, and we just make holsters for backcountry hunters. That a lot of I would say mostly archery guys, but it's gotten pretty broad. There's a lot of guys from that are into rifle hunting too that are carrying a pistol on their side for various reasons, right? And so we kind of built a product that works really well for backcountry hunters. It mounts to your hunting pack, and then when you drop your pack, you can pull it off of there really easily and slap it onto whatever your hip belt is for when you're quartering your animal or you're back at camp or whatever it is. But yeah, Ivory Holsters is, I don't really do a whole lot of social media personally. I only signed up for it just because of the business, and it's been really good, man. It gets, I share a bunch of like personal like hunting stuff on there too. And I've got a YouTube channel for under Ivory Holsters that I'll do some dumb stuff when I'm in the woods, like solo, where I'll do like elk hunting pro tips. It's some funny stuff. So yeah, just if you wanted to catch me anywhere, you can email me at info@ivoryholsters, or anywhere like Instagram, Facebook too, YouTube, and then although I haven't checked it in a while, I have a teenage girl TikTok page too that I haven't really done a whole lot with. So yeah, just because the marketing guys say you have to have one, so I did.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have heard your take on field mice. If you want to give a PSA on field mice.
Yeah. Just field mice are terrifying. Dudes need to carry a 10mm for field mice. That's why most of my customers are picking up the Glock 20 for field mice, because they're much scarier than bears or mountain lions for sure.
That's awesome. All right, Gabriel. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate you jumping on the podcast. It's been actually a lot of fun. Definitely been different than the other episodes, but there's nothing wrong with that. So thank you.
Good, man. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, brother.
All right, guys. That's it. Another story in the books. If you have any feedback, please let us know. Just go to @huntingstories_official on Instagram and send us a direct message. And of course, while you're there, don't forget to follow. Now, I want to thank Gabriel again for taking the time to share stories with us. And I hope you enjoyed those stories as much as I did. But for now, go to Instagram and follow @ivoryholsters. And don't forget to check out their website as well. I'll be putting links to everything in the show notes, but they have a lot of really cool stuff coming down the pipeline, so make sure you keep up with them, and also know that he makes every holster by hand. So he's doing some good work out there. And of course, now, don't forget to head to your favorite preferred podcast app, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it may be, and subscribe, review, comment, and of course, don't forget to share to help us grow the podcast. Now, thanks again for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the podcast so far. We will be releasing a new episode every week as long as I can keep up and have people willing to tell their stories. So thanks again for tuning in. Now go make some stories of your own.